Hi, I'm Stephanie Reid, and welcome to The Minutes. Thanks for listening today. It's great to have you along on The Minutes for the week of July 4th, 2025. This is a City of Thunder Bay podcast. The Minutes takes a look at what happened at Thunder Bay City Council this past week. You can find The Minutes wherever you get your podcasts, including our YouTube channel and our website, thunderbay.ca/The Minutes. If you want to keep your finger on the pulse of what's happening at City Hall, hit that subscribe button. On this episode, I'll have a rundown of what happened at Thunder Bay City Council this week, as well as an interview with Rilee Willianen, the Encampment Response Lead for the city. The temporary village was back at Council this week with another location change, and we'll hear all about it. But first, after a brief discussion and change to move the item regarding the temporary village site up on the agenda, Council started off its meeting with a presentation from the city's Indigenous Advisory Council. The presentation from Elder and Bundle Carrier Sheila DeCourt highlighted the roles and responsibilities of the Council to the Indigenous Relations Office and spoke on the importance of the committee. Council also heard a presentation this week from Rennie Gallant, the CEO of Synergy North. The presentation was on the utility strategic plan. The plan notes that in the next 5 years, the utility expects rapid electrification, higher customer expectations, and a call for environmental and economic resilience. Synergy North says in its last strategic plan, it updated its distribution system plan, strengthened its vegetation management plan, had a successful cost of service application, and continued its strong safety record. Other changes on the horizon include the decarbonization of the grid, using more digital tools, decentralizing power production as more homeowners and businesses feed into the grid, and changing expectations. The 8 priorities over the next few years are system investment, advancing technology, risk and business continuity, distributed energy resources, and electrification planning. Customer service experience and value, employee engagement and safety, workforce development, and community partnerships. Thunder Bay Hydro, which is a company that is wholly owned by the city and owns the majority of Synergy North, also has its own strategic plan. That plan calls for a focus on governance and administration, investor relations, business development, energy transition and engineering, utility services expansion, and behind-the-meter solutions, where customers generate some of their own power. Council approved an update this week to the city's investment policy. Council is required to review and update the investment policy annually. Overall, the city's return on funds invested through the policy were 8.5% on money not required immediately, and 5% on money that was. The updates to the policy has some language and terminology updates and also includes a change in how the city's investments are managed. The city uses the one JIB for its investments. Changes to that firm's operations allow it to focus on governance while being attractive to larger communities to invest in the fund. The city has about $250 million invested overall. For 2024, investment income was $9.8 million, with $8 million going to reserve funds, $1 million to operations, and $800,000 to trust funds. Continuing with city finances, Council got its update on the 2024 budget. Overall, the city had a favorable variance, or it finished the year in the black. The 2024 operating budget had planned for a $2.9 million withdrawal from the Stabilization Reserve Fund to fund one-time operational items. However, due to favorable variances across multiple areas, this withdrawal was ultimately not required. After accounting for this, the net variance in tax-supported operations was $38,600, representing 0.02% of the 2024 municipal tax levy of $231.3 million. The surplus, or positive variance, was transferred to the Stabilization Reserve. For rate-supported operations, there was a favorable variance of $1.6 million. Those variances are sent to specific reserve funds depending on what city operation the surplus comes from. Administration says, like most municipalities, it uses the modified accrual basis of accounting. However, the audited financial statements are prepared in a different manner. This means the audit that is currently underway will show different figures than what the city has already released. Council also heard how an updated environmental study is now available for the Northwest Arterial. The roadway was first proposed in 1987, linking Gulf Links Road and Dawson Road. The cost of the project is more than $33 million. The first environmental assessment was done in 1989, with an update in 1992. The updated environmental study will be filed with the city clerk, and the public will have 30 days to comment on the study. An open house was held in December of 2024 about the study, with some changes noted, including the addition of a sidewalk and a multi-use trail, enlarging the right-of-way, having speed limits of 50 or 60 kilometers per hour, and having a curb and gutter along the 4-lane road. The intersections at Pioneer Drive, Hutton Park Drive, and John Street Road will have access to the new road and be controlled using traffic signals, roundabouts, or stop signs. The final type of intersection control will be decided during the detailed design stage. There is also the opportunity for additional intersections to support new development and growth in the area. These growth areas are located between Pioneer Drive and Dawson Road, and between the McIntyre River and Highway 1117. To ensure adequate spacing between intersections, the approaches of Picard Avenue and Belosky Road will be closed to the Northwest Arterial. As a result, a new secondary access road to the Cherry Ridge subdivision is proposed under this project. A new bridge across the McIntyre River is also required. The two options for the new bridge include a single-span or multi-span bridge. The final bridge design and profile will be further studied in the detailed design phase. There is no timeline as to when the road will be built, as the report only dealt with an updated environmental assessment. Council approved submitting an application to the Northern Ontario Heritage Fund Community Enhancement Program for upgrades to the Delaney Arena. A Stage 1 application was already successfully made, and the city was invited to apply for Stage 2 of the program. Stage 2 includes a council resolution supporting the funding. The total cost of all the work is about $4.6 million. The NOHFC would fund $2 million, with the city picking up the rest of the tab. In the 2025 capital budget, a project to replace the failing cold brine slab and the dasher boards at Delaney Arena was approved, and administration began detailed design and tendering in order to have the work completed in the off-ice season, spring-summer 2025. Prior to awarding the work, an opportunity arose to apply for additional funding to support this project, as well as other additional needed capital improvements at Delaney, including upgrading the brine chiller system and components that are at end of life. This upgrade, combined with previous upgrades, will fully renew the ice plant at Delaney for a life cycle. Installing a new power feed for an electric ice resurfacer to be brought forward in the 2026 capital budget. Upgrading brink lighting to high-efficiency LED high bay lights, renewing the existing viewing stands to bring them to current code and accessibility standards, as well as provide spectator radiant heating units, improving front entrance egress and mitigating seasonal flooding issues, renewing skate flooring throughout the facility and lobby, and replacing the existing scoreboard and controller. Work to replace the slab and dasher boards is currently ongoing, with completion slated for the start of the 2025-26 ice season. Council approved moving forward with the automating the water meter reading system throughout the city. As part of the 2020 services review, administration was told to automate how the 38,000 water meters are read in the city. The report recommends using city-owned advanced metering infrastructure, where water meters would transmit their data to a central system owned by the city. The automatic readings would eliminate estimated bills, and homeowners would no longer need to submit a reading. The hourly readings would also show undetected leaks in a home's plumbing system. Mechanical meters, which are currently in use throughout Thunder Bay, degrade over time, which generally undercount the amount of water used, as well as underbilling. The average meter age is just over 23 years, with about 4,700 meters over 40 years old. Most meters should be replaced between 15 and 20 years to remain accurate and not have meter failures. The report notes that the city could be losing about $1.5 million per year in water revenue. As well, meters built before 2002 have a bronze alloy that contains 5 to 7% lead. There are about 20,000 meters of this type still in service, which will be given priority when meters are changed out. The city, at this time, cannot accurately know all the meters that are being read properly, so the new system will bring water billing to nearly 100% accuracy. The only cities in Canada with a population of 100,000 or more with a direct meter system, or one where the consumer checks the meter, are Winnipeg and Thunder Bay. Winnipeg is already moving to an automated system. Changing out the meters will cost about $23 million and will have a payback of just over 12 years. The life expectancy of the meters is about 20 years. The new meters are also expected to reduce the amount of water being lost by homeowners, resulting in fewer greenhouse gases used to pump and treat water. Water treatment is very energy intensive, using about 1/3 of the city's natural gas consumption and more than half of its power consumption. Council passed a number of bylaws, including one to establish tax policy decisions, including tax ratios and optional property classes, another related to the proceedings of meetings of council and committees, and another to appoint officers for the corporation of the City of Thunder Bay. Council also passed a resolution for new Deputy City Clerk to be appointed to the position. Viewers of the minutes may be familiar with Jeff Walters, who will be appointed to the role as of July 15th. Dana Earle, the current Deputy City Clerk, will become the city's Director of Customer Service for the next 18 to 24 months and will create the new one-stop customer service shop. There were a few announcements made on Monday night. Councillor Pasqualino announced that the Homecoming of the Harvards event featuring classic aircraft that were built locally in the 1950s was happening this weekend at the Wasaya hangar at the airport. City Manager Colin took a moment to announce that the kickoff of Live on the Waterfront series happened this week and will run every Wednesday from now through August, where great bands will hit the stage at Marina Park. Council also voted to establish a closed session meeting on July 21st. Council learned how a group called Planet Youth want the mayor to sign a declaration to help establish a program that works to reduce substance use by youth. The declaration would show the city's support for the program, which includes applying for grants and designing and implementing a programming model. There is no timeline on when the program would be in place. Council also voted to establish a memorandum of understanding to establish a youth hub in the city. Since 2023, administration has been working with the Children's Centre of Thunder Bay and other groups to create the hub, which would fill in service gaps for mental health and substance use for people aged 12 to 25. The MOU would include the use of city facilities like the Kinsman Youth Centre and Canada Games Complex. A memo from administration says there are already agreements in place for use of these facilities, so there is no financial implication with the MOU. The youth hub is expected to open later this summer. And finally, Council revisited the location for the temporary village again this week. Council suspended its procedural rules at its last meeting to allow a notice of motion to be heard and debated this week, which would change the location from the Cam River Heritage Park to the again recommended site at 114 Mile Street East. A memo from Cynthia Olson, the Director of Strategy and Engagement, told Council last month that the Cam River Heritage Park site is no longer viable for the temporary village, as the safety measures needed for the site are cost prohibitive, which are needed to satisfy external partners. Director Olson also wrote that the site safety assessment is almost done, and although the work needed is technically feasible, the cumulative cost exceeds the budget. The recommendation to move to Mile Street also includes an annual contribution of $125,000 to the Fort William BIA to support revitalization of the South Core, cleanup, and security. An extension for the project has been granted with 40 units ready for occupancy by mid-December, and the remainder completed by the end of February 2026. A report from administration says no further extensions for the $2.8 million secured funding will be granted. Initially, the site on Mile Street was suggested for the village, but Council voted against that option. It also voted against using a site on Fort William Road and another on Cumberland Street. Now administration says it recommends Mile Street after reconsidering that site. Initially, the site on Mile Street was suggested for the village, but Council voted against that option. It also voted against using a site on Fort William Road and another on Cumberland Street. Now administration says it recommends Mile Street after reconsidering that site, the one on Cumberland, and one it calls the Hillyard site near 8th Avenue and Central. Mile Street was the most fiscally responsible choice with capital costs of up to $4.5 million, and it can support 80 units. It is identified as having the least risk to residents, it is familiar to the population using the village, and it's consistent with the official plan and zoning bylaw. It also has the most environmental information and supports the revitalization of the Fort William downtown, as it should reduce the amount of homelessness in the neighborhood. In comparison, both the Cumberland and Hillyard sites are far less suitable and present significantly greater risk to the project's success. These locations raise concerns related to safety, emergency access, and proximity to essential services. Challenges also include adjacency to recovery-oriented services, external hazards, lack of pedestrian infrastructure, and high-traffic roadways. Addressing these issues would require costly and time-consuming mitigation measures that would jeopardize project timelines and funding. Administration notes that the Mile Street site has the fewest challenges, including nearby industrial properties that could be at risk to property crime. The site needs landscaping and natural space, and the fact that the land could be used for housing in the future. Council approved the site, with ratification still to come. And that's a wrap as to what happened at Council this week. For more information on anything that happens at Council, please visit our website, thunderbay.ca/council. After getting moved up on the agenda, the temporary village and its location was back on the floor at City Hall on Monday night. It comes after Council was told just a few weeks ago that the site selected for the temporary village at Cam River Heritage Park was not feasible. It meant that City administration, after direction from Council, would go back to the drawing board for a site. Rilee Willianen is the Encampment Response Lead with the City. Rilee, thanks for coming into the minutes today. So, we seem to have had a site picked at Cam River Park already. So, what happened there?
Yeah, so when we went to council with CAM as the recommendation, when it was approved, we did commit to doing a full safety assessment that included external participation as well from a diversity of stakeholders. We did do that safety assessment, and what we ended up finding was the measures that would have been required to satisfy those external partners were outside of the budget of the project, so it had to be rescinded and a new location identified.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, you talked a little bit about it there, but could you go into some more detail about the work that administration has done to find a suitable site?
Yeah, certainly. So it's been a really lengthy, comprehensive process. We've looked at over 50 sites. When we first started this exploration, we had some site criteria, 9 of them that we identified, and we've been using those same criteria all throughout every round of site review and identification. What we ended up doing after our first few tries weren't successful was we went and contacted Realty Services, and they gave us about 50 or so properties that we screened against initial criteria. So, for example, if there was a playground on the site, then that was immediately removed from the list. And then from that, we had about 29 or so properties that went into a weighted matrix with all those criterias, and then it produced this really colorful list and showed sort of where the top ranking sites would have been that met really fundamental criteria like the size of the site.
So, speaking of different sites, there was one site that was looked at pretty closely that I had never heard of before, called Hillyard. Can you tell us a little bit more about that location, maybe sort of where it is?
Yeah, so it's next to 8th Ave, and it's a treed lot. The end of the street also has the municipal enforcement office. And then across the way, there's a drainage ditch and then the T-Baytel building. So it's in a more like light industrial sort of area, and it was on the ranked properties list as well.
Let's get back to Miles Street and to the criteria and sort of, looking at that. Can you get into some specifics on the detail of really what makes Miles Street the preferred location?
Yeah, for sure. So Miles has a few key features that make it the best option in administration's professional opinion. So it is the most fiscally responsible choice. It comes in under projected budget estimates for the capital and construction. We did also engage with external safety assessments, so through a crime prevention, through environmental design professional, and the Thunder Bay Police. The CEPTED professional did say that of the options that were identified, it was the best option. And then the Thunder Bay Police also identified that it was the site that posed the least risk. The location also has the most consultation to date on it, and it has emerged through those consultation efforts as the top option in 2 public surveys as well. And then also we know that the South Core is experiencing a lot of challenges, and some of those challenges are related to the scope and the scale of unmanaged homelessness and encampments. We really do see the opportunity to support the downtown revitalization by addressing the challenges that are associated with that level of unmanaged homelessness.
Yeah, so speaking of that, there were a few deputations last night from some area business owners and folks who had some concerns about a potential increase in crime or open drug use, things like that. I know that you've looked at other cities from around Canada and the U.S. and that have done similar projects. Is that what you find in other cities?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and it's actually not what you find. You do find similar patterns of, concern being expressed, and once the village or the whatever their model looks like gets going and is operational and it's well managed, you see people typically change their tune. A lot of people are supportive. They report feeling safer in their areas. So it's a pretty common story to see the concern being expressed, and then to see kind of that walk back once it gets going, and that is supported in the research.
That's good to hear. You had mentioned a little bit earlier about some public engagement opportunities. What opportunities will there be for the community to sort of stay engaged on this project as it moves forward?
Yeah, for sure. So we'll have a neighborhood liaison committee, that will be comprised of people who are in the area to have that two-way dialogue going, transparency, and to make continuous improvements all throughout the project. Staff will also continue to have their presence at drop-in events, such as the Thunder Bay Talks event that happened a little bit ago in the spring-summertime, and a variety of other engagement opportunities that we will work on as we go through this process and have a communications plan in place.
So speaking of the process, can you now that council, or I guess the committee has approved this, I expect the next step is ratification. When does that happen, and then what happens after that? When are we going to start seeing houses being built?
Yeah, so ratification will be on July 21st. If it is ratified, then we will complete our RFP processes. They are in progress at the moment, and then in the extension requests for the funding that we were successful with receiving, we do have to have 40 units built by December 15th. So though that 40 units will be there, it doesn't mean that there will be 40 people there. It'll still be a phased approach to occupancy to give everyone some time to adjust and get used to things, make improvements if they're necessary, and we anticipate that the construction will start sometime in August.
Thanks for coming, Rilee. Rilee is the Encampment Response Lead for the City of Thunder Bay, and she joined me today in the Minutes studio. A big thank you to you for listening to the Minutes this week. Of course, if you want more information about City Council, agendas, minutes, you can visit thunderbay.ca/council. And if you want to listen to past episodes, check out our website, thunderbay.ca/theminutes. You can also find the Minutes wherever you get your podcasts, plus you can find us on YouTube and on our website as well. If you want to keep your finger on the pulse of what's happening at City Hall, hit that subscribe button. I'm Stephanie Reid. Thanks for listening this week.